Welcome to Outstanding Care Business Podcast. This is Issac Theophilos. Today we have a very special guest. He has been a practicing solicitor for 25 years and then came into the care sector in 2001, acquiring his first care home in August 2021 in Exeter. And now he has grown that care home group into 4 care homes, which is called Southern Healthcare. He is also the director, one of the directors of Devon Care Home Collaborative, which is a community of care home owners working together for the benefit of the sector. He was also a founding member of Devon Kitemark. He is extremely passionate about the sector and very uh, authoritative in voicing his concern to the relevant authorities as well. Very powerful man. And I would like to welcome Mr. Geoffrey Cox, the one and only Geoffrey Cox, to this podcast.
Thank you very much, Isaac. I'm completely flattered by what you're saying, but thank you. I know it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you, Geoffrey. And we've known each other for a couple of years now. Since I think I met you first at the Devon Kitemark event, and I was amazed by the passion of that group and the energy, which I don't normally see in other care association, which was fantastic. And I was very excited during that time, and I'm more excited now because I'm part of your group as well now, which is as
Yes,
a provider.
delighted to have you on board. And I think we go back about 5 or 6 years, to be honest. And time flies when you're having such fun.
That's right. So, Jeffrey, this episode is all about you and your entrepreneur journey in the care home sector. The first question to you is, where did you start and how did it all begin? Why did you decide to come into the care home sector?
There's several questions in the question there, and they're not easy answers. I, as a solicitor for 25 years, before I came into the care sector, I've been a lawyer 20 years, and I carried on being a lawyer for another 5 years, even though I had the homes. That was quite tough. But during the time of being a lawyer, I'd had many care home clients. I'd had many clients who bought and sold care homes. I had many clients who were people living in care homes, and we specialised in elderly people's affairs and trust, power of attorney, court of protection, that kind of stuff. And I just got close to the sector, I guess. But also, it just so happened that my grandfather happened to have been a resident in an NHS geriatric hospital in the 70s. And I cast my mind back to that experience. And I have to say, gosh, thank God we have moved on a long way over the intervening years. But it was an experience that's indelibly printed on my mind. Plus, my grandmother, and in this case, is my mother's mother, as opposed to my father's father. She also went into a nursing home post a stroke, and it was not a happy experience. And I kind of concluded even though I didn't know that much about social care from the client side who are running care homes and my own experience, I thought, do you know what, I'm not sure it can be that difficult, and I'm sure it's something I'd like to have a go at. But I was in Bournemouth, but trying to buy a care home in Bournemouth or Poole was impossible. There were big plots became great sites for redevelopment, so I had to look further afield. So that caused me to start looking in Devon, and Exeter was the first home that really appealed.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we cannot continue the conversation without mentioning your lovely wife, Margot. You've been a team together in running the organization, and you have 3 care homes, am I right? Rated outstanding.
Three of the nursing homes are rated outstanding, and the other one is good with outstanding and well led.
Fantastic. I mean, effectively, it's all outstanding. Well done to you and your team.
Thank you.
And the second question would be, how did you find your first business, and how was the experience of after taking over the first business? It's the first time in the care sector. How was the experience the first 1 year?
Yeah, that was a really interesting experience. I was coming down from Poole or Bournemouth to Exeter 2 or 3 times a week, a lot of driving. Thankfully, the home had been owned by a lady who had in previous years lost her husband. She'd lost interest in the business and really had left the manager, There was a good manager, strong manager, housekeeper, maintenance man, and administrator. And between the four of them, they kind of were running it. And it was, to some extent, I didn't feel I needed to be there to worry. But as I got further on down the journey, I kind of felt that there were a lot of things that I would hope to change.
Hmm.
And I became much more hands-on, and things really did start to change when I did. Although, how did I find it? It was tougher than I thought. But
Okay.
having said that, being a lawyer can be quite a challenging career, heavily regulated, lots of rules, lots of expectations. Have to be careful on your every word, otherwise you'll get hung. And I started to feel that I can't. Looking back, I'd probably say that being a solicitor was easier.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a quite a lot of revelation there. Being a solicitor is easier. Okay, thank you. So, how did you go from when did you acquire the second care home?
Well, interestingly, it was kind of I've been interested in it for a couple of years because actually I saw Parkwood House in Plymouth long before I saw the old rectory in Exeter. It was rather quirky because in those days, it's all singles today, but 23 years ago, it had a lot of doubles. It even had some treble rooms, would you believe? And it even had one four-bedded room, would you believe?
Wow.
And I was very interested in that. I love Plymouth. I love the home. I love the location. I used to sail there years ago, and I was really comfortable with the idea of buying it. But it was going to be a no-no on change of ownership because they were not going to re-register the home with the same number of beds. That no, sorry, we don't do quadruples, we don't do trebles. That stuff is not going to be acceptable. You won't re-register those. They could be singles, and you've got too many doubles anyway. So half of those are going to have to go and be converted to singles. So that didn't go ahead. So that's actually what the seller did in the intervening period. And 18 months later, she had done all that, and I decided the time was to perhaps move on to another home as well, and resume the negotiations, and completed that in September 2003.
2003. That was 2 years after the first acquisition.
Exactly. Yes.
Well done, well done. And did you have a management team by that time, or you developed as
No,
you grown?
I absolutely didn't. But with you mentioned Margot, our wife, and with her help, she took on the role of director of nursing because we were already in negotiations to buy another home in Plymouth. In fact, it didn't happen. We were also looking at one now, but that didn't happen. But we did buy one in Seaton in 2004. But before we bought that home, and with that in mind, she took on the role of director of nursing and compliance, and basically responsible for the kind of oversight of our managers, compliance, and the standards of our nursing team. And it allowed us to, for 22 odd years, we've been running a kind of it's like I don't know, how would you call it? She's very fastidious and things have to be right. I'm a really kind of nice guy. The risk is that um, we need a bit of both. We need a bit of teeth, and we need to be nice, and we need to be both. So I guess we have a bit of a good cop, bad cop thing going. Because I am very much, so far as I'm concerned, I think I'm the people person.
Yep.
I'm not saying that Margot isn't, but so far as she is concerned, she's a nurse through and through, has been for a very long time. It has to be right. And she takes care of the things that I don't want to take care of.
That's
And I'm blessed to have her taking care of those things because I probably would be rubbish at it. But that's not to say I don't pay attention to detail. I do, particularly over numbers. And if I gave her a spreadsheet or set of accounts, she'd say, "What's that?" It doesn't mean anything to her. So I have to, you and I have to be concerned about numbers as well as people, as well as
yep.
operation, as well as compliance. So we all need different skills, but numbers are not hers, and compliance is not mine.
It's a very good combination. You having that legal background and Margot coming in from the clinical background. I
Yeah.
think that's a very successful winning formula, I would say. Uh,
Well, it stood us in good stead, and we're still learning.
Having a family business, and especially when you're running as a husband and a wife, what are the challenges that you have to, how do you uh, manage the boundary between the personal life and the business life. It- I'm a bit selfish here because I want to learn that from you, because I am a young entrepreneur with the same type of scenario. My wife is a nurse as well. So,
Really?
what kind of advice would you give it to people like myself?
Well, the first comment would be whether it's advice or not, I don't know. It can be at times quite challenging. And I think Margot is quite an exacting person, whereas I kind of tend to be, I don't ever seem to stop really in my head anyway. So there's a seamlessness between life at home, life at work, if you like. And because post-COVID, we built an office at home. And so we're more at home than I used to be for the best part of 20 years or 19 years. Because I used to have an office at Dawlish, but I work from home now in an office which we built. Now, so at least I kind of trot out a few doors outside the house and go to my office while I'm at work. The risk is going back and forth into the house, and the lines get blurred. But Margot's quite strict. We really between outside of the hours of say 9 to 5, we do not have work conversations at home.
That's fantastic.
So before 9, forget it, unless we have to. We're going somewhere, just about to go, or after 5, sorry, stop, no more work, need to switch off, need to stop. Maybe that's 6 o'clock, but weekends is pretty much a no-no. Maybe the odd fleeting conversation before I forget something, but to get stuck in, no way. Otherwise, there is no separation of life from the challenge, and sometimes it can be too much if you don't kind of manage that.
That's right. And this is coming from a person who's been in the sector for 23 years, and I should take that advice on board. Thank you. Uh, So, in terms of, we definitely have to mention the Southern Healthcare team. And how did you grow your team, and how did you find the right people to surround yourself with?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I think that uh, to a larger part, we didn't have the right people, if that's a way of putting it. But I think it's much deeper than that. I don't think personally, years ago, I had the right skills to develop people. One of our three main planks of our aims is to develop people, develop caring relationships as the other one, and to develop keep developing a strong reputation is our third one. And I think the thing I felt I learned early on was it's no good waiting for the quotes right people to turn up, because they're not going to. We had to become skilled in supporting and developing people to be the best they could be. Now, in terms of the number of managers, we've got 4 managers. Over the years, we've probably had over 30, and I think many of those we've parted company with and felt this is not working. So it's not been an easy or happy experience inheriting homes with managers. Having said that, Lorna has been with us, or she was working in the home long before I took it over. So she started there in 1992,
Hmm.
and she worked her way up from. She's a bright lady, worked her way up from care assistant, senior care, head carer, assistant to the manager, and became the manager 2007. Emma joined us in 2006 and has managed both Sefton Hall at Dawlish and the Seaton, and is still there. She thought about moving on to a different career at one time, and she tried that and came back a few months later, which is exciting. And she's still there many years later. So we're I've got to be very careful to make sure she's happy in her role, fulfilled, and meeting her internal our own ambitions. Because if she gets bored or stayed or jaded, this is a role that could be easily become too much for anybody. So we work closely on things like that. And Mimi, who is our manager at Sefton Hall, she was our first ever Romanian carer in 2007 when she joined us
Hmm.
from Romania, and her English wasn't brilliant at that time. She very quickly became a senior carer, despite initially there were language challenges, but she soon got to grips with the language, and she was proved to be valuable. She became our senior carer, became our head carer, became our deputy manager at Plymouth, and joined us to transfer as manager at Sefton Hall 2015, so 8 years ago.
Fantastic.
And I think that it's, for me, the success of the group, the management team, the managers, us working together is first and foremost. I think probably the first thing is treating each other as individuals on their own terms, on the relationship basis, before we start to jump into work issues. That's the first thing, to be humans to each other rather than employee, employer, etc.
Yep.
Secondly, to really build a partnership, which I think requires honesty, openness, permission to challenge, disagree, which sometimes I can tell you can be quite difficult. I find that. And to accept also that we're not always going to get everything right, and we're not going to kind of make a big song and dance if we don't get something right, whoever that might be, whatever that might be, within reason, of course. But if people are generally trying their best, and if they are trying their best, then I have to be incredibly appreciative of that. And so that's kind of a part of my approach, if you like.
Fantastic. I think few things that you touched upon, which I don't normally see, not normally, very occasionally see in some care home scenarios. So all the leaders that work for you are have been with you for such a long time, which means there is a reason for them to stick with Southern Healthcare. That means there's something that might be it's you, or maybe the vision of the company that might be attaching them to you. That's big kudos to you. I don't normally see that, because managers, I think the manager turnover rate is around 20% in the sector, which is quite high. So if you imagine about 15,000 care homes and 20% of the managers changing roles every year, it that itself can be a reason for low quality of care in those care homes. So
I agree. Well, we're also doubly fortunate, if you like, in that over the years, whilst it hasn't in truth worked out with many managers that we've inherited or tried, and there have been some difficult passings of the ways, so to speak. We are, you referred to Margot, and we have been blessed to have Margot, and she has the capability, maybe it's not what she would like to do in her life, but she has the capability of running a nursing home at a very high standard. And when she does so, things happen. So when she is working with the managers, or we both are, it's not from a position of this is what I want, I demand, this is what I expect, like it or not. I'll call the shots. I say jump, you say how high. It's done. I've done this. Margot has done this many times over in all of our homes when we've been through changes of management, and she has that experience and capability. And the last time she managed one of our homes was Exeter in 2020, when it had been rated outstanding, but we had a manager there who was really going off the boil. We had an amazing clinical lead, assistant manager, Annalyn, who was a nurse from the Philippines. She was 49. She'd been with us 5 years or so, more than that, I think. She went back to the Philippines on leave for 3 weeks. In fact, it was 23rd January, which is my birthday, so I remember the date vividly. But sadly, on 3 weeks later, on the day before she was due to fly back, she was taken to hospital in the Philippines, and they discovered a tumor on her kidney. And tragically, she died that night. And it put the home into absolute mourning and devastation. And not only we had a temporary, loss, not having our clinical lead for 3 weeks, but we've now got this dramatic loss. And it really exposed the harder she worked, the less the manager was working. And it really exposed that in a way that was even more graphic than we perhaps even cottoned on to. And it just so happened it was right at that time that we had an inspection. To be honest with you, with no manager, with no deputy, and a deputy having been away for the best part of 4 weeks at that stage, yeah, we could have been in quite some trouble with CQC. How we were rated good with outstanding and well led, but that itself was quite a pleasant surprise compared with the ferocity of the questions which we couldn't answer as well as we should have done, that were being fired at us by CQC at the time. So I'd like to think that they saw something in our capability and our determination, even if what the actual day-to-day running at that time was nowhere near as good as it should have been.
So, touching upon that, the best care homes are run when the manager is not around, because it's run by the team around them and
Well,
the systems are
that's also
implemented.
true. I think I see managers, conductors of orchestras, if they are all things to all people, I think you've created the risk as one has created a dependency.
Yep.
And I think for me, true leadership is everybody being empowered, being included, being themselves, feeling confident, feeling appreciated. And the manager's role, I see my role as managing director as principally I'm the servant of my managers and the teams, and my job is to serve them. And
Absolutely.
if they do not like my ownership service, they will buy elsewhere.
Yep.
And it's the same with the whole team. If they don't like our uh, employment service, they will buy elsewhere, and we need them desperately, like we've never needed them before, as we all know. So I guess that our leadership direction over the years has moved, and I can't say it's been easy. It wasn't an overnight revelation, and suddenly it was all hallelujah. Not at all. It was painfully difficult, but I think we've moved to a kind of a service orientation of leadership, and the team are our customers. And by the
I
way, I'm not so bright that I know that. I got that from Richard Locke, from a video online from Richard Locke, who does management tools in lots of disciplines. It's not a care discipline, it's not a care thing. It's just management, top tips for managers, and see your team as your customers, because if you don't, they won't be happy. You won't keep them.
That's right. I mean, I'm very touched upon what you said just now about servant leadership, where we are actually serving as a business owner. We should be serving our team
Yeah,
to follow their advice, their directions. Yes, there is a vision which comes from the top leader, but it's actually executed by the team in the front line, and we are supposed to serve them to make it happen, isn't it?
and I think that there's if we I like to think that if we get it right by looking at things from the standpoint of a team member, then we've got a very good chance of getting it right from the perspective of the residents and the families and as a business. And it has to be a win-win of our individual personal goals and our corporate aims and ambitions. And if we can get a kind of happy marriage, if you like, between those things, we're on to something. If we don't have that, then I think it's always going to be very difficult. So for me, I believe that people in their nature, maybe not in our culture of our societies, which is a bit more tougher and harder nosed and self-centered perhaps, but in our nature I think we care about people, we care about others, and we like giving and we like contributing, and I think that is a most underrated, powerful human driver of fulfillment. And I see amazing people, so especially through COVID, contributing at an exceptional level and getting fulfilled from that. And my job, I believe, is to notice that,
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate that, to appreciate that, to reward that effort appropriately, and to honor that day in, day out. And I kind of think if you do, we kind of create a bit of a win-win
It
between
does, yes.
the whole team. And I'm just myself, I'm just a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I own the company. There's a lot on the line, and if it all goes pear-shaped, I lose out heftily, etc. There's a lot at stake, but I do think that if we create something that's bigger than us individually, we can
Yes.
create something that's really worth having, achieving. And so I think we have that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it happens just because you want it. And I certainly will, hands up. I've made plenty of mistakes, got it wrong. I guess I hope that I've learned from some of the great many mistakes I've made, and it's helped me to get it right eventually. That's how it feels.
Thank you. And that leads up to my next question. What's the one mistake that you want to share with other young entrepreneurs in the care sector?
I think there could be a long number of answers to that question, but let me take something that I think is really important. I think the mistake I made, and the mistake we can easily made, is to see how things run in the world, or who says what about what, and assume that that's because that's normal, that's okay. Whether that is the way an owner relates to the team, or the way that care is delivered. And I don't like to think in terms of care. I like to think more in terms of building quality of life for people who we have the honor and privilege to serve, for however long that may be. I also think that when there are models of care out there, heavily, predominantly medicalized, hospital based, working on deficits, we've got to take care of things that don't work, and the rest of it is not important. I think if we just go along with the status quo, we're going to make a big mistake and fall in the same trap as everybody else has done. I
Okay.
think we have to be willing to stand back, and carve out time in our working day, our working week, our working year, our working life. We've got to stand back, reflect on what we're doing, and say, is this right? Is this as good as it could be? Is there not another way we could do this? And what do people really want if you dig deep? People who are living in residential care homes, the family members, the team members, what do they really want? What's really important to people? And I think that is, we can be fooled by going along with the norm, or listening to government type narratives about, or what people want is live in their own homes and choice and control and independence. I think, well, that's a bit of a tough call. Someone's 95 who's immobile and has dementia and this, that, the other way, that actually depend upon us for their existence and their life. And why can't we, rather than presupposing there are we have a certain societal view to older folk, came out in the COVID inquiry, people, if COVID hits people who are older and more frail, well, they've probably got what's coming to them anyway. And I was really, I was, sadly, I wasn't actually shocked to hear that anyway last week, about the kind of stuff the government was saying. I kind of knew it anyway because of the poor guidance we'd had, but just to hear it again just reminded me that I wasn't wrong after all. Kind of ageism, that kind of stuff. I think so many things are just unacceptable,
Mhm.
and we have to have the wherewithal, the determination, the passion, the inspiration, the kind of the vision, or take the risk of doing things a bit differently, rather than accepting anything we see around us. Because probably, if we look back at it carefully, we'll see it's being wrong, and we can do better. I hope that makes sense.
It does. To summarize for my audience, but this is what I took from your conversation just now, which is step back and reflect on why you're doing what you're doing,
Yeah,
rather than listening to the wider narratives of politics or news or propaganda of different companies, etc. So we have to make our own decision on why we started care home in the first place, and what is important for our customers and our staff, and then do it in the best way, whether it's directed by anybody else in this world.
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good summary.
Thank you. And how do you look after your own well-being as a leader of an organization?
Well, I do take that quite seriously, believe it or not. I think for many years I was probably not as good as I should have been, but I'm an active sailor.
Okay.
I do race. In the summer, it's, all being well, there'd be most Saturdays and most Wednesday evenings. And in the winter, it goes down to Saturday mornings until Christmas, and then stops for a couple of months. I work out 3 times a week. I can't say I'm super organized and I go to the gym, that would be absolutely catastrophic for me. I would never get there. I'm too busy. So I literally have a guy who comes around to me 3 times a week at 7 o'clock in the morning, 52 weeks of the year, and says, right, we're going to go through our paces. And the game is we're going to do a little bit more each time than we did before. So the goal is, as I get older, I get fitter. So I think taking care of that has been massive for me because, long before COVID, I felt at times I was suffering stress and blood pressure. And then that sort of came back with a bit of a vengeance during COVID. It was worrying times for all of us. And I had to really take my own health and well-being and fitness quite seriously because I think I also do music lessons. I play piano, I play drums, I sing, I play guitar.
Wow.
I take lessons in all of those and still do. Um, I have a singing coach, and she said to me, she sent me to a lady who is a Rolfing practitioner. It's like a kind of deep tissue massage type of practitioner. She really is quite brutal. They said, you've got tension here, and unless I get rid of that tension, that stiffness, that tension, you will, you're not functioning as you should do. And that kind of really came home to roost a couple of years ago when I had high blood pressure. And I felt really achy and stiff. It was through COVID and the COVID times, not COVID itself, although I had that twice. And she said, I can see why you have headaches and migraines and dizzy spells of blood pressure. You're not standing right. And I can see you are racked with tension in your neck and shoulders. And the problem that's going to give you is it's going to put pressure on your nervous system and it's going to trigger of headaches and migraines and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. So she worked on that, and I don't have that anymore. And I have to say, my singing coach says, "Good job, I sent you to see Jackie, because I probably saved your life. You're probably going to have a stroke."
Hmm.
And I think, don't be sick, don't be joking, don't be ridiculous. I'm seriously said, you were working all hours, running around like a headless chicken, quite worried about a whole bunch of stuff. And that was very obvious to me, and it impacted the way you were trying to sing because it makes it really difficult. You need to be relaxed, not be stressed out, not be breathing in a shallow way. You have to breathe deeply, properly through a diaphragm, and those things are important to singing. And that's why she sent me to Jackie, and probably, she may well have been right. I don't know.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a great summary of what somebody should focus on their life as well while being a business leader. I mean, as a young person myself, it can be easy for me to tend to get to like a more business goals rather than looking after myself in that journey. So
Yeah.
that's a great advice. One thing that you have mentioned is having the coaches for doing different things that will help you to get further quicker and in a organized way as well, isn't it? Having a personal physical health trainer, having a music teacher. Mm.
Most people in business, you have to have confidence, determination, and you see things and you're going to make it happen somehow. And if people stand in your way, they're going to, you're not going to like them. They're going to, and maybe that's kind of a mistake I made. So I learned about the model of appreciative inquiry.
Yep.
It's an American model. Things like, do a degree in it, so I won't do it justice. But things like, you better believe that people are trying their best because usually they are. But often we don't start with that standpoint. We're there. We see something we don't like and we criticize it.
Mm-hmm.
But if that person was trying their best and they gave their best, is it really their fault, or is it your fault for not giving them the time, the training, the support, the encouragement, the tools to do the job? So I tend to look back at me critically before I look at other people, and usually I find the fault with me, not with them. Secondly, with appreciative inquiry, it's when you're trying to support people, it's more of a sort of a mentoring, coaching, arm around the shoulder approach than this isn't the way I want it, and finally, really celebrating, appreciating the amazing stuff that people do,
Mm-hmm.
because if you look for it, you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to bring people on that journey with you, and that's been quite powerful for me.
Fantastic. I have indeed actually met many care home owners who plays piano and other musical instruments, which is interesting.
Music is like it's like the lifeblood of quality of life for me. It's a huge part, and it plays a huge part in our work in some healthcare and music being involved. So we have a band. I play drums in my band, and
Oh, wow.
the guy who plays the piano in the band, they're all professionals apart from me, by the way. I used to play drums in a band when I was a teenager for a few years before I went to university and became a lawyer. I thought that was a good idea. I'm not sure it was, but anyway, that was I gave up drums, which is probably the silly thing to have done. Um, the guy who plays the piano, Craig Milverton, he was voted the top jazz pianist in the UK in 2010.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He happens, for my blessing, he happens to live in Exeter,
Hmm.
and he's a very modest guy, but extraordinarily talented. And we every 2 weeks we play in two of our homes,
Hmm.
and so it's a regular thing. And he is the most incredible pianist. And the double bass player Kevin, he's reputedly the top double bass player in the Southwest. And Craig's daughter Ellie sings, and she's incredibly versatile. Will sing any band, anything, take on requests, and says, "Yeah, I don't know that song, but I'll try it." She's incredibly good, and we have a lot of fun. And we also stretch ourselves as what we can do, what we're capable of, and what we can. Number we'll try to play that we haven't played before, etc. And it's usually pretty good. And
Hmm.
for me, I do enjoy it. I can't deny that. But secondly, most importantly, I'd say that playing live music to people is a real honor and a privilege.
Hmm.
And we're playing to people that, and this happens every month, as people in our sector will know only too well. We're playing to people, and somebody somewhere won't be there the next time we are playing in that home. And I think I remember that lady. She really loved listening to the music. She really engaged with banging a tambourine or singing the words, whatever it might have been, and was really happy and smiling. And if that's my memory of that person, I'm privileged and honoured to have experienced that. And we have, over the 8 years I've been doing this with the band, in the homes, I'd say we've had some many magical moments, and they keep happening. It might be a bit expensive, it might seem a bit unusual, but I believe in it passionately.
And nothing is unusual for Southern healthcare and Geoffrey Cox. Fantastic. I mean, it shows how much wider you're thinking. You're not just providing the basic needed care. It's more thinking about the overall aspect of the human beings, what they need in terms of their feelings, in terms of their psychological impact they have through music and other relationship. So I think this all comes through you as a leader, and that's amazing. It's not easy to replicate Geoffrey Cox. That's the summary.
I mean, I'll share what I do the way I've done it. Not everyone will do it the same way and will agree with what I do, but it has been successful from a business perspective too. So
Yes.
it all sounds lovely and fluffy. I can tell you that our business is strong.
Yep.
Our reputation is strong. Our occupancy is strong. Our fees are strong. Our staff retention is strong. We don't use agency. We don't have to, and I don't want to. And to be honest, all these things play a part in helping the business survive. Some pretty choppy waters at the moment, and they're not
Hmm.
set to get any easier anytime soon, as far as I can see. So, I think we do need to be imaginative and on top of our game and different.
And
And I
different.
guess hopefully, maybe you might think that some of the things that I've said are a little bit different from the norm, but it clearly wasn't like that when I started, and it's been a journey of discovering and learning and making plenty of mistakes along the way too.
Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. And before we wrap up, I just want to have some rapid fire round. So just few questions. You will have to answer very quickly as you can. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not good at doing that.
Probably your legal background is not helping you to do that.
Go
So,
on.
favorite software?
Favorite software?
Yes.
Oh God. Well, I have to say, probably, sadly, as boring as it sounds, Microsoft Word, because it just happens to be the tool of my trade, you know?
Fantastic. Thank you. Favorite book that helped you as an entrepreneur?
Favorite book? Oh, God. Um, okay, this is going to be really heavy, but it
Yep.
was actually probably changed the way I think about care. A long time ago, Carl Rogers' way of a way of being,
Way of being.
a way of being. It's very much about. He's the guy who developed person-centeredness in the 50s.
Yes. Yep.
Well worth reading. It's heavy reading, but my God, it's transformative.
Thank you. Money or health? What would you choose?
Health.
Wife or food?
Wife or food? What did you
Yep.
say?
Yes, I did.
Wife, of course.
First car.
First car, a Hillman Imp.
A favorite role model leader?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And it's been a great pleasure listening to your story, your wider perspective thinking, and how much passion you're bringing into your own business as well. And it's a great pleasure. And before we end, how can people reach out to you? Yeah, I understand you do Eden training. Do you want to summarize a little bit about the training program, how it can help care homes?
Yeah, so Southern Healthcare runs 5 programs
Yep.
training. One is the Eden Alternative, an American training program developed in the 90s by an American geriatrician, Dr. Bill Thomas. We also run David Sheard's Butterfly program. We run the Meaningful Care Matters Dragonfly program, which is sort of a parallel program, but not so dementia facing. Margot runs a course which is for nurse mentoring, which hopefully will lead to the advanced diploma in social care nursing for nursing staff. And we
Fantastic.
have another program which we run primarily for people who join us called Chrysalis. And Chrysalis is it's designed to be embryonic, and it includes a deep dive into person-centeredness, appreciative inquiry, some of the things I've mentioned to you today, a bit of Tony Robbins and human needs psychology, a whole bunch of stuff, namaste care, end of life care for people with dementia, and well-being, emotional intelligence, and a whole raft of little things we try to introduce to people and hope that they understand that's something we're trying to incorporate into the way we work. So back to Eden, which is your question. I saw Eden running in New Zealand in 2009, and I was on holiday in New Zealand. It's a bit rare for me to be on holiday, but well, on holiday, we thought we ought to have a look at a few care homes down there, because that's what you would do on holiday, wouldn't you? What else would you do in the sea? So we saw some care homes. 2 of them were absolutely dreadful. Made me think that for all our criticisms, the UK care sector is actually way more advanced than the New Zealand one,
Oh,
which is
wow.
quite a statement. Until we saw one, which is in a place called Whangarei, North Island, and I was just blown away. They had built a building alongside the care facility that was like a cross between a day center and a theatre. And they had a kind of stage and tiered seating, and there was stuff going on there from breakfast to late at night, 7 days a week. And I thought, wow, I've never seen anything like that. What's more, I've never seen anything quite like the energy and the enthusiasm and the fun,
Hmm.
which I thought I'd like a bit of that. And I found it was that they said that we're implementing the Eden Alternative as a model of working, and which we do as well. At that time, I had never seen it before. Had to find out if it was working in the UK, operating in the UK. It's an American thing. I was in 22 countries, and yes, it was. So I did the training myself, 2011. We incorporated it. It was hard to begin with because we were so far off that pace. And 2015, 2013, I became a trainer. 2015, I was invited to join the board. I was quite passionate about it. And in 2019, as a husband-wife team, the husband died, sadly, who was running it, and the wife couldn't continue. So I said, well, they appointed a new CEO, and that was a disaster. And it wasn't looking great. And I said, look, I will host the administration for now, whilst we get somebody else. But then the pandemic struck.
Hmm.
So really, for those, we took it online instead of it being a face-to-face program. It focuses on how do you address loneliness, how do you address helplessness, how do you address boredom. It does training. We took it to become an online program. We run it over 7 weeks, an hour a week, over 7 weeks. We also do a 2-day face-to-face program, which we run about 4 times a year. And the courses, the 7-week course, run back to back. But so we took it over, and I got so kind of into it that it's going to be tricky to get a new CEO because of the, we're kind of, it's almost like it's rebuilding as an online model, but it's growing slowly. And I guess for me, most of my time goes into Southern Healthcare, but I do enjoy what I do in this model of training, and it's been really helpful business-wise for Southern Healthcare, and it's open to anybody. And we run every course. As soon as one finishes, we start again, and we've done that constantly since July 2020. And we got a face-to-face 2-day training on I think it's 21st and 2nd of January, I think it is, Eden House, which is a training centre we've got at Dawlish, which we bought and converted a former pub into a training centre with accommodation for any staff we recruit from abroad. And we run Eden training there. So it's completely away from any homes, and it's comfortable. It's a nice venue. It's a nice location. We run it there and run it online, and we try to train people to train their own trainers in their own teams to become the trainers of Eden, so they don't need to be dependent upon anybody else. So that's what we're doing.
Fantastic. And how can people get in touch with you? Which social media platforms?
So there is an Eden Alternative website, of course. There are links to it on the Southern Healthcare website. It has its own Eden Alternative Facebook page.
Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with me for recording this podcast, and wish you all the very best and success for your next decades and the decades to come for Southern Healthcare and for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.